This is Image City Photography Gallery's show called Mindbending Digital Art, and here's the star of the show, Dennis Adams.
Okay, you said in Mind-Bending Digital Art, Ansel Adams said that his work was more about how he felt about the scenes he saw than what they actually looked like. These
Yep.
images are about things I think about, feel, imagine, and have experienced, expressed in colorful ways. Digital art and photography have been merged without any attempt at accurate representation of physical objects. Non-photographic elements such as digital brushstrokes have been added, colors have been altered, and most photographic elements have been distorted beyond recognition. Appropriately, the images are printed on canvas and stretched onto wooden frames by hand. They accurately represent what I created on my computer screen. 5 of these were created in collaboration with Lisa Cook, who deserves equal or greater credit for their creation than I do. I hope you enjoy this unusual exhibit. Very well written. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
What can you add to that?
Well, just that I had a lot of fun doing this. And last year, when Betsy was featured, I had a few digital images which I created a year ago in Australia. Of course, I've had a chance to do a lot of work at home since then because of COVID-19. The images, I think, are quite a bit better. And also during the year, some new software tools showed up, which was terrific. It gave me some goodies to work with. I reworked a few that I had done in the past. And in fact, I'll be re-exhibiting one that I had just a few months ago in a revised form using a new tool, new software tool.
I see. The one you exhibited before, I think, was done on metal, if I'm not mistaken.
The last ones were on canvas.
Oh, were they?
During
Okay.
Betsy's show.
I was thinking they were on metal. My mistake.
I had some metal. I won an award at State of the Art Gallery in Ithaca with a metal digital work almost 2 years ago now. Well, digital art is the way things are going, and it will become the norm. I don't know how soon that's going to happen.
Well, you know, all photographs today are digitally manipulated.
Right.
Some people would like to say, well, this is straight out of camera. Well, you know, straight out of camera is not really straight out of camera. The camera has done some processing. It's taken the raw data and applied contrast and sharpness and things like that just to produce the JPEG image that comes out. So all photographs to some degree are digitally manipulated. How far they're manipulated and to what creator's vision is it?
Well, this goes back through the history of photography, changing images, and it's nothing new. Put a filter over your camera, shooting black and white film, you've altered it.
Well, you know, the simple fact of choosing a lens, choosing a wide angle versus a telephoto lens is altering the image and how it's captured. And
particularly, I think with black and white film, your choice of developer and film has a big influence.
Yeah, you mentioned Ansel Adams in your artist statement. Of course, he's probably one of the most famous manipulators of images. And you know, if he were around today, he would be a huge Photoshop enthusiast.
There's no question. I'm sure he would. Yeah,
he would be all over it. And he even said that in some of it in the later years. The future of photography is in the electronic image, something along those lines. And that the person who learns how to properly manage and manipulate that electronic image is going to be the successful photographer of the future.
It's really a pleasure to be doing the first exhibit of your digital art, to really kind of debut it. There are, of course, limitations. The biggest limitation, I think, today with digital art is size. I don't think that image processing technology has gone to let us really do the kind of quality work that we'd like to do. Particularly the programs and apps which are available for brushing and using electronic brushes, so to speak, an electronic paint, whether it's oil or watercolor or acrylics or whatever. They're great for magazine covers and smaller sizes, but they just haven't made it yet to to big canvases. Once digital photography showed up, it was clear that that would be the dominant form. But there are still advantages to it. There's still a certain look about photos. I think particularly black and white photos that is very difficult to replicate digitally. Just as vinyl records have a certain sound that a lot of people like and is just not quite there with digital.
So this coming exhibit, I'm going to be showing 8 photos from Costa Rica. We traveled there maybe 3 years ago or so, and my intention was to get a lot of animal and bird photos, and I certainly was able to do that.
I bet you did on the birds. I bet the birds were a lot of fun. Are you going to show those in a future show?
Actually, I'm going to have the birds in this one too.
Oh, okay, good.
So I think I've got 6 birds and then 2, maybe, no, 5 birds and 3 other, the sloth, an alligator, a crocodile, and then a view from the top of Monteverde looking across to the ocean. They always talk about how bad the roads are. And I knew that before I went there. I did not expect it to be like it was. There are 3-foot potholes all over the place, and you're just lumbering through these huge holes. Astonishing. But the friendliest people I've ever met. We were there, I guess, 2 weeks. We were on a tour and with group of, I think we had about 16 people, and traveled around started in San Juan, went up into the forests of Monteverde, and then down to the coast. And then the group left, and there was, I think, 6 of us who stayed and went to an eco lodge on the other coast and did touring by water most of the time there. And that was amazing. It took a full day from San Jose to get there, taking this long bus ride on the roads that are awful. And then probably a 2.5-hour boat ride into the place where the eco lodge was. And then there's no cars or anything. You only get around by walking or boat. It was fascinating.
But that was a fun trip. I'm sure you enjoyed it. Your wife went with you, is that right?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it was the only time my camera ever died on me, though. I had a Canon 7D, and I had a full lens, or a camera cover on it that covered the whole thing because it was raining so much, so I could shoot in the rain. And it must have leaked in there somehow one time when I was out shooting hummingbirds, and that shut down. But I was able to just dry off the contacts, and luckily it worked again, because I was like, oh my God, I'm halfway through this trip. My camera is dead. There's no way I'm going to do anything about it there. But luckily it worked.
Well, you were fortunate that you were able to dry it off and get it working again then. That worked out well, yeah. Tell me about this brown-throated sloth. That's an interesting photograph. I like that.
In Costa Rica, they have a bunch of different kinds of sloths. And I kind of expected to see them, hanging in the trees like teddy bears, looking all cute and everything. But it's raining. Most of the time they are soaked, and they're way up in a tree. So if you're looking up in the tree, which has a lot of leaves and branches, most of the time you can't even see it. And it took the guide to tell us where it was, point it out to us, and then I could finally find it, and I'd track it with my camera lens. And then if I looked away, I would have a hard time finding it again. And for the most part, they were dark and soaked, but still kind of cool looking. But this one happened to be one of our rare sunny days. And we were walking down this hiking path, and the guide pointed it out to us. So I got the best pictures of a sloth that I gotten. But the sloth didn't look like the ones you see hanging in the tree like usual. when I got this photograph, it was moving up the branch. And I thought it really looked like a person in a sloth suit, because the expression on its face was, wow, it was amazing. And whenever I look at it still, I'm kind of creeped out by it.
I assume there's no particular theme here. It's just David's potpourri. Is that right?
That's what all my photography is. And that's the advantage of digital. I can switch themes. I can do anything I want, not worry about wasting film. And that gives you a lot of creative opportunities. You do what pops into your head and it costs you nothing.
That's right. Tell me a little more about Hello Bear. Where was that taken? Obviously, it's an aquarium somewhere.
It was in Rochester at the zoo.
Oh, it's right here in Rochester. I didn't realize. I didn't know it. I did not realize that we had a polar bear habitat or whatever it is.
There was some other fish in there too, I think. I don't remember. That was several years ago. You go down a flight of stairs and you're below ground level. Upstairs, the people are standing around this pool and watching the animals in there. And underneath where I was, you can look through the glass and see them. I didn't have anything to do with it. I was just standing there and all of a sudden I looked up and I saw that picture. That's the way things happen, right?
A lot of times it is, the more planning you do, the more photographs you get, but also the more you keep your eyes open and look around you, the more the opportunities present themselves and you take the shot. And I guess that's what you did in that case. You do a marvelous job. In fact, I was going to tell you on the tubist where you took out that speaker or whatever it is behind him there.
That's why I put those two pictures in, to show the kinds of things that I like to do.
Well, you did a great job on that. You would never know that was there. That was a perfect job of removing it.
Well, flattery works on me,
Yeah, I know it does. That's why I'm doing it. Now I ought to make you take that little orange pad that's beside his right foot. Take that off too. No, it's fine. You know what I like about that is when you first look at it, you say, where's the guy's head? In fact, I would be tempted to even go a little further because you can see a little of the back of his head up there. No, maybe that's not. That's just a reflection on the body of the tuba, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Tell me a little more about the tiger at the piano.
Let's see, why did I do that? I can't remember. I think I made it part of a greeting card that I sent to somebody. I had that stuffed tiger for years, and I just thought of putting him in front of the piano because it tickled me.
Well, I have two questions then. Number one, is that your piano? And number two, why did you have a stuffed tiger at your age?
I'm young.
Oh, okay, all right.
Or immature, take your pick.
I think, yeah. You're probably a little of both. Yeah, you are young at heart, and you are a bit immature. I'll have to admit, I've known you for years, and that is a characteristic. That's for certain.
Well, I got into photography, I think, when I was about 13 years old. And I had a darkroom, actually. I'll never forget my very first experience in developing a roll of film. I didn't realize that, the word safe light implies safe. I didn't know there was a panchromatic film that was sensitive to red, and I had a red safe light. And I was so disappointed. I did everything right, and all I got was black. You'd roll the film back and forth in a tray of developer, did everything carefully, and I timed everything. And of course, it all turned black because I had a red safe light.
Back in the 80s and 90s, when I shot some film, I just sent it off to have it developed. I didn't do it myself, of course, especially color. That would have been a really complicated process. I sent everything off to have it done and really lost interest. I'd never really had any interest in the darkroom at all. And boy, when digital came around in 1996, I bought my first digital camera. So I've actually been doing digital photography for a quarter of a century now, believe it or not. That adds up. If I did my math right there, that's 25 years. Once digital came along, I was just thrilled to death that I didn't have to worry about a darkroom. I could do it all on the computer, and it was a wonderful thing.
I think it was about the same time that I got my first digital camera. At that point, I had a pretty good enlarger. I was developing my own prints, and I sold everything, and I never went back.
What's going on with the competitions these
Oh,
days? Still
they're
digitally, obviously.
yeah, they're going extremely well. We've had judges from Hawaii, Germany. I think in our next competition, one of our judges is a retired professor who lives in New Mexico. And I think it provides a much fairer judging because in a live competition, where the judges are shown the images and see them. They can look at them for a minute or two. They go back through and judge them. But if we email the images to them, they have a chance to really look at them.
So tell me, what are you doing this month? What's your plan? I saw you submitted that photo of, I believe that's a black and white of Letchworth, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. It's got a little bit of sepia tone to it. I thought that I would do black and white this month. You know, black metal frame. It's a little bit a deviation. I did a black and white show with you folks one time. I, like everybody else, likes to experiment with black and white, and I've gotten more and more serious about it lately. And I thought this upcoming show would be a good time to have some fun and try to produce some images. I have to be honest with you. I have a bunch of them lined up here that I haven't even converted yet, that I want to see just what I can do and see what kind of results I can get. As I've probably mentioned before, these opportunities that I have at Image City Photography Gallery, I take them on not just as an opportunity to show some of my work, but as an opportunity to explore maybe some new genres and to have fun more than anything else, trying different techniques and sticking with, you know, my genre, which is landscape. But it's fun to branch out once in a while, and that may be landscape but just viewing it differently, and this would be in monochrome. I've also been toying with the idea. I'll have 2 panels there, and I'll have a number of prints. I might stick something with some really dynamic color right in the center of each of the panels, and then have it surrounded by black and white, just as a kind of a visual teaser. I thought that would be interesting to do. So I'm a very difficult person for you guys to pin down until like the day I bring my prints in, because I haven't quite decided yet what I want to do, but it's going to be primarily monochromatic, and I'm very excited about that.
I like the idea of a splash of color right in the middle. That's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you haven't even gotten all of them ready yet. You haven't selected them all or decided what you're going to do. But
I have about probably half of the ones that I'm confident that I'll show, but the other ones I've got a bunch lined up that I'm working on, and that's what's fun. Is I spend my time in the evenings, a lot of evenings, just taking an image and working on it for a while. I'm not someone to do a quick post-processing. I'll work on an image maybe for an hour or two some evening. And then I generally, before I show it on social media or display it in a gallery, I'll come back to it 2 or 3 times over several days. And I always find something I wish I'd done a little differently. Ultimately, in most cases, each one of my prints is something that I've spent quite a bit of time and thought on, and that's all part of the process that I enjoy. I just happen to have a lot of fun doing that.
sounds like it. I'm much the same way. You know, I start looking at an image and I say, okay, I've got it. I'm happy with this. Then I come back and look at it later and say, you know what, I need to crop that a little differently. Or, you know what, I need to clone out this thing over here. This is distracting me. I end up fiddling with it. And of course, at some point, you reach a point of no return where you probably are doing more damage than good. I think the wisdom is to know when that point occurs and stop at that point, you know.
I would think most photographers that try to put a little bit of their soul into not only the shoot, but the post-processing, just like you've mentioned, I've also produced a lot of work over the years that long after I've displayed it or I've had it on social media or whatever platform, I'm shaking my head going, why did I ever show that to anyone? So
I get that feeling sometimes myself. So this one that you call Points of Light that you submitted for a preview, is that a sunrise at Letchworth? Is that where you
Yeah,
get early?
it's just beyond the sunrise. It's, maybe an hour or so after sunrise, but there was a lot of atmosphere that particular morning. So there was haze slash fog slash mist from the river in the gorge, and you had some dynamic clouds with kind of a silver line, and some of the trees had just starting to come out in color, and they stand out more than some of the other ones do. It was just, I thought when I converted that, I thought, holy smokes, it just, I really liked the look of it. It was one of those ones that looked like any other of my gorge shots until I converted it to black and white. And then I put a touch of sepia on it, and that's where the magic happened for me. So
How do you do your black and white conversions? Do you use Photoshop, or are you using a plugin like Silver Effects Pro or something like that?
I start everything in Lightroom. I'm in my infancy actually with Photoshop. I just dabble in it a little bit. I have the subscription, but I do almost everything in Lightroom, and I'm very excited about expanding my horizons into Photoshop more. It's just a slow process for me, but I start with Lightroom, and then I do use Silver FX Pro.
That's probably the gold standard for black and white conversions, although there are
Yeah.
several other programs that will do it.
I'll flip back and forth between that and some of the control I have in Lightroom, and I usually end up with some product that I really like. For me, that's probably the most important goal, is to produce something that I really get a kick out of.
I assume that's your house, not some background you bought off the internet, right?
Well, I'll tell you, you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for a house, or, $20 for a picture. What's the
There
big
you
deal?
go. That works. Do you have a green screen behind you, or you
You
just
sure do.
Okay, because usually most of them don't look good at all. Yours nice and crisp and everything. So
It was
green screen.
$100 well spent.
Yeah, I've thought a couple of times about buying one, so I don't have to, this silly little grid behind me or something like that.
The trick is, though, once you get one, they're big in this big oval.
Yeah.
And the trick is folding them.
Learning how to do that trick.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And there are more places than you can shake a stick at on the internet that will give you a lesson. And I shopped them all, for free. And I finally found I can now fold it up in no time at all with little thought. But the first few times it was a 10-minute ordeal.
See, the internet is a wonderful thing. The problem is for every YouTube video that shows you how to fold it correctly, there's at least one that will show you incorrectly and claim that they know exactly what they're doing, but it doesn't work.
Well, I think it's the Russians.
It is. It's a Russian plot. Yeah. Or the Cubans. Yeah. Speaking of Cuba, boy, I was looking at the photographs that you're going to show. Well, you're everywhere. You're from Cuba to Slovenia to Iceland. My God, I tell you, you're a well-traveled man, Jim. No question about that.
Did you figure out the theme of my pictures?
No. Is there a theme to that? I thought the theme was places I used to travel before COVID. How's that?
And while I was there, I took a blue picture.
Oh, okay. They're all blue. I didn't notice that. Okay. All right. Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. But now
My
that you
blue shirt on, I just thought of that just now. But yeah.
and now you have a blue chair in the background, by the way. So
Here we go. Teal. Yeah. There we
and,
go.
in fact, both of your photos on the wall on your background have blue in them.
Well, those are actually
Not
not
photos.
photos. Those are art.
Art
paintings.
paintings. Yes. Artists amaze me. People that can do stuff like that just fascinate me, because I'm not able to do anything. Photography is the closest thing I can come to doing art.
Exactly. Same here.
So COVID has shut you down completely, hasn't it? So what are you doing these days? Did you buy an RV like most of us geezers and travel the United States, or what are you up to these days?
Well, photographically, not a lot. I bought a new camera. You know what they have on them that's so neat, especially for people like me? I use back button focus.
Yeah.
And you can assign it. They have two focus modes. One focus mode, it looks for the subject, and the other focus mode, it looks for eyeballs.
Oh, okay, the eye focus, yeah.
And so I have two back buttons, one's for things and one's for eyes. And you do have to predetermine if you're doing an animal or a person because the eye algorithm is different.
So you can't, you need 3 buttons then.
Yeah, I suppose. But I don't do animals.
Oh, you don't, yeah, you're right. I don't think I've ever seen you do an animal, so I guess
If I want to see an animal, that's why they got zoos.
that's right. That's what they're there for. Absolutely.
And Liz would really like to go to an African safari or something, but doesn't
Well,
do anything for me.
If you ever do, then you can change that that one back button focus button over
Yeah.
from people to animals and see how it works. You know, we have a photograph in the gallery right now that I don't know if have you been by to see the Magic of Light show?
Nope.
No, well, you know, there's a photograph of a lady in a dog competition or something, and the dog is running straight at the camera.
Peter, what?
And she used the animal eye focus, and it did the tracking. And boy, the eyes are tack sharp. It's
Yeah.
amazing technology that works like that.
Yeah. Well, one of the reviewers did this big thing and says, now with this eye focus, you can finally use your f1.4 lens because you never could get your focus close enough to use the low depth of field. Now you still have to be able to live with the nose and the ears being out of focus. But a map over here of the world, and I have these little push pins, and I stick a little push pin in every country where I've been.
Yeah,
I got 60 of them now.
Well, that is amazing. Look at that. Pins everywhere.
Yep.
60 of them, huh?
What gets you is, the United States is worth one damn pin.
You just used one pin in the United States, but I'm sure you've been more places than just Fairport.
Well, yeah, I went to Pittsburgh too.
Oh, okay.
Then like France, I've been to France probably 25 times, and I've taken 10 big vacations there, one pin. Now I did cheat a little bit. I went to Corsica, which is where Napoleon was born.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And actually, Corsica is an island, but it's a province. It's a French state, just like Ile-de-France and all the rest of them. But I said, it's so far away from France. I'll give it a pin.
From mainland France, you can do that. Yeah. I agree. That makes sense. That's one little cheat, but that's not bad. Now, what do you do about China? Do you have one pin right in the middle of China? Because I know you've been to Mongolia.
Well, that's different. Mongolia is not China.
Oh, it's not. I thought it was part of China.
There's two Mongolias, maybe the inner and outer, but the one that we just call Mongolia is a standalone independent country that is not part of China, nor I don't even think there's a big China threat. So what are we going to talk about on this video?
We just did. We've done it all.
Well, we've done it all.
Oh, yeah.
They talked about my pictures.
Tell me about the Arab sifting the sand through his hands.
Yeah.
Now, I believe you told me one time that you did slip him a buck or two to pose for you like that.
Yeah, I got the ethics of I don't know. I move things. I pay people.
Yeah.
And he was like worked at the hotel, and he kind of came along with us. He was a camel driver, and we had him sit down there. He had these beautiful blue robes on, and then we were just trying to think of things that would make the photograph more interesting. And so we said, well, can you just pick up the sand and let it pour through your hands? And he did that for a while, and he took a bunch of pictures of that, and it made it. I had that picture up forever in the wall here. I don't anymore, but I really liked it. It came out. It was a great effect.
Oh, the lighting on it is fabulous. I love it. It looks like a little bit of backlight on it, and it really defines him. It stands him out from the background. It's a beautiful photograph. I love it. That's why I wanted to talk about it. The funny one that people see the photographs of Monument Valley with the cowboy sitting on the horse up on the mesa, with the buttes in the background, the mittens they call it. And they said, boy, you were really lucky that guy rode up at that point. I mean, what they don't realize is it's a Navajo Indian who's paid to do that. That's his job, is to ride the horse up there back and forth all day long.
Yeah. Now, I would say, by the way, I to be really, we have slipped money to some people to be in our pictures and do
Sure.
certain things. But I would say that probably well over 80% of all the pictures I take or show or at the gallery, no money changed hands. It was just a matter of trying to talk somebody into letting me take their picture.
And it's hard to do it when you don't know the language, but you know how to do all the sign language, don't you?
Absolutely.
Hold the
You can-
camera up, point at it, smile, yeah, all those
What I
things.
do is a couple tricks is you got to be very slow. You cannot be abrupt, and you got to hang around and be around them for a while. And then they have to see you take some other pictures to see you're not just after them, or you're not just stalking them. And then you smile, and you do a lot with facial contact and eye contact. And after you go through kind of a bit of a dance, you might say, or I just look at the camera. I just look at my camera, and they know what's coming. And I'd say, I don't know, 20% of the time they say no. And I respect that. The other thing is, another great trick is if there's any kids around, you always start with the kids.
Oh, yeah.
Because the kids have no resistance. And I don't even want the pictures of the kids, but I just want to take some pictures there. And if I want to take a picture of a person, I'll take a picture of their kids first. And then I'll maybe the kids and them, and then get rid of the damn kids and get a picture of them, which I wanted all along. So you got to kind of go through the ritual.
And I assume you chimp it and show them the picture on the back of the camera too. So that
It is such a wonderful thing to do. You know what I mean?
I'll bet. I've seen a lot of huge smiles. I would think taking photos of people looking at their photo on the back of someone else's camera would be wonderful.
Yeah,
The eyes light up and the big smiles, you know.
But it's funny that over time that's sort of changed, because when I bought my first digital camera in 2004, and I was going to be film and digital for a while. The dual path lasted about 7 to 10 days. Okay. And I never took another film picture after 2004. But when I first started doing it, that thing in the back of the camera was an incredible novelty, incredible. And now everybody, between iPhones and everything else, you can go to the most remote parts of the world and they expect it.
Somebody's going to pull out an iPhone in Timbuktu, and so they've all seen that. I guess it doesn't have the fascination that it used to have. Huh?
And by the way, I photographed in Timbuktu.
Oh, I'm sure you have. I would not expect anything less, Jim. I heard somebody talk about that they used Timbuktu as no, it wasn't Timbuktu. They used an example of the Himalayas with one of the Sherpa camps way up as people were hiking up to climb Mount Everest, and there was a little shack that where you could get some supplies, and inside that shack was a roll of Kodak film for sale, and they said that was market penetration in Kodak's heyday back in the 80s.
There you go. Yeah.
If you could buy a roll of Kodak film in a little Sherpa camp on the Himalayan mountains, you definitely had market penetration.
You probably still have one left.
Probably the same roll is still there.
You haven't been able to move it. Don't tell Gary, he'll be up there. It's one last roll of Ektachrome.
The theme is musical instruments, things that I have accumulated over time, images that I've accumulated. They're not all my instruments. But it's a mixture of things from very representational types of shots, like the sample I gave you, the quartet's shot, which is something where I've recently been spending part of the COVID break rebuilding acoustic guitars. So I happen to have had a lineup of 4 of them sitting back here in my office behind me as I completed them. and decided, hey, these might make a nice shot. So I lined them up over in my dining room and pulled out some studio lighting equipment. And within a couple of tries, got exactly what was in my head. It was a pretty gratifying experience, really, too.
Tell me what else you bought.
Okay, the bulk of them are guitars this time around, but I do have, let's see, I gotta try to remember the shots. There's a piano that I saw abandoned against the side of a building. And that one certainly uses natural light, but it was kind of neat in the way, it was an odd little overcast day, but somehow the insides of the instrument, the gold of the bridge, and there's this, like a strip of red felt running through there. They just kind of lit up a little bit. So there was a kind of a glow to it, which made the otherwise really abused instrument look kind of nice. Let's see, there's a violin in there. If I had it on my monitor, I'd be able to tell you what.
No, so you're telling me you have a violin in your home? You said you restore instruments, or is it just guitars you restore, or all instruments?
No, it's a wide variety of them, actually. I have a number of violins. Again, I've accumulated them over time at flea markets and estate sales and things. And this break time has been well suited to working down in the basement and getting some of these backlog of projects done.
So this is a hobby of yours, restoring musical instruments. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
So you're
It's kind
combining
of an outgrowth of my background. Prior career, I was a mechanical design engineer. I worked with Eastman Kodak for 24 years, and most of that was in design, but also manufacturing and assembly and quality assurance and advanced development and things. So I really have, kind of an innate appreciation for how things are built, the work that goes into them, the craftsmanship in how they're made. And that explains partly why I just like instruments. I'm an amateur musician, but I like having the instruments around just because I like their form and the design and the variation between them.
Well, so you get to combine your interest of restoring musical instruments with your photography hobby, and and you put them together for this show. That's a great idea. I like it.
Right. It's worked out pretty well, and it allows me to exercise my photography skills in different ways. I mentioned the one shot that was, outdoors and actually shot at a bit of a distance. I was at the mercy of the light that was there at that particular time of day. Other times I'll be walking around the house, and because I have instruments, placed all over the place, sometimes the light comes through and just hits them in an interesting way. And I'll try to capture that. There was one, it's not in this particular grouping of images, but the light was coming through a kitchen window, over the refrigerator, under a cabinet, through a doorway, through a hallway, through another doorway, through a room, into the living room that you could see behind me, and just happened to hit the headstocks of a couple of guitars that were there in a stand, and the tuners and the shapes of them were sending little sprays of light against the wall. And I saw that and went, I've never seen the light come through at that exact angle. So I ran and grabbed the camera and was able to get that shot.
That's great.
Other times I'll pull out the studio gear and create the lighting that I want. Well, just one other point is that the images run a gamut from pretty representational to almost completely abstract. I've got one in there that leaves just the slightest bit of information as far as what the object is. It's, again, 4 guitars, but done in a way that reduces them to almost pure shapes. And that, again, was done with studio lighting in a particular way to control what was going on.
That's what I was going to ask you, because you said the one of the guitars that you call quartet. You said you set up studio lighting. What kind of lighting did you use for that?
Well, in my professional photography, I do a lot of product work, commercial images. So I have a good selection of strobes and various modifiers that I can put on the front of those lights, soft boxes and reflectors and grids and snoots and all that kind of stuff. So I picked out a couple that would give me the shaping and quality of the light that I wanted for that particular image. And all it took was a couple of minor adjustments and it delivered.